Stop. Don't look at your phone. Don't look at the time. Look at this dot. You think you know what this is. You think it's money. You think it's value. But I'm here to tell you that everything you think you know about the paper in your pocket is a lie. A lie your brain tells you. A lie history tells you. A lie the economy tells you. Today, we aren't just watching a documentary. We are performing a surgery on your perception of reality. We are going to take the most fundamental tool of your life, money, and we are going to break it. And then, we're going to rebuild it. This is the Think Lent Deep Dive. And by the end of this, you will never spend $1 the same way again. Let's meet our test subject. This is Kareem. Kareem is you. Kareem is me. Kareem is a biological machine running software that hasn't been updated in 50,000 years. He's about to walk into a trap. Not a physical trap, a mathematical one. Watch his hands. See how they shake slightly? That's cortisol. That's the fight or flight response. But he's not fighting a tiger. He's fighting a spreadsheet. The invisible trap. Picture this moment. It's a Tuesday morning in October, and Kareem sits across from his manager in a glass-walled conference room. Outside, the city hums with its usual rhythm. Inside, his heart pounds. This is the moment he's been preparing for the annual review, the salary conversation, the negotiation he's rehearsed a dozen times in his mind. His manager slides a folder across the table. Kareem, we're pleased to offer you a 7% raise. That's well above our standard increase this year. 7%. The number hangs in the air. Kareem feels a wave of satisfaction wash over him. 7% more money. 7% closer to his goals. 7% validation of his hard work. He smiles, extends his hand, and accepts. Walking back to his desk, Kareem feels lighter. He pulls out his phone and calculates. His $50,000 salary just became $53,500. An extra $3,500 a year, nearly $300 more each month. He's already thinking about what this means. Maybe that weekend trip he's been postponing, maybe padding his savings account, maybe finally upgrading his laptop. But here's what Kareem doesn't calculate, what he doesn't even think to calculate. Inflation is running at 8.5% this year. Let me say that again, slower this time, because this is where everything changes. Inflation is running at 8.5% this year. What Kareem just celebrated, what felt like a victory, what seemed like progress, what appeared to be a reward for his dedication, is a pay cut. His purchasing power, the real value of what his salary can buy, just decreased by 1.5%. The $300 extra he's excited about each month, it buys him less than the $50,000 bought him last year. He's earning more money and he's getting poorer. But Kareem doesn't feel poorer. He feels richer. Because Kareem, like most of us, like perhaps you right now listening to this, has fallen into an invisible trap. A cognitive illusion so powerful, so pervasive, so deeply woven into the fabric of how we think about value, that it shapes decisions affecting trillions of dollars in the global economy. This is the money illusion. And before you think you're immune, before you assure yourself that you'd never make Kareem's mistake, before you convince yourself that you understand the difference between nominal and real value, I want you to consider this. The money illusion isn't a mistake that some people make. It's a fundamental feature of how the human mind processes economic information. It's been demonstrated in thousands of experiments across dozens of countries. It affects Nobel laureates and undergraduate students, corporate executives and minimum wage workers, economists who study it, and psychologists who document it. The money illusion is everywhere. It's in every salary negotiation, every price tag, every investment decision, every political debate about economic policy. It's why businesses price items at $9.99 instead of $10. It's why workers who receive pay cuts during recessions are outraged, while workers who receive smaller raises during inflation are satisfied, even when the real economic outcome is identical. It's why you might feel wealthy when your salary increases, even as your standard of living declines. It's why the numbers in your bank account can lie to you, and why you let them. This documentary is about that lie. But more than that, it's about why we believe it, how it shapes our world, and what it reveals about the strange relationship between the human mind and the concept we call money. Welcome to the complete saga of the money illusion. To understand the money illusion, we first need to understand something fundamental about money itself, something so obvious that we rarely think about it, yet so strange that once you do think about it, it never quite makes sense the same way again. Money is not real. I don't mean this in some abstract philosophical sense. I mean it quite literally. The paper in your wallet, the digits in your bank account, the numbers on your paycheck, none of these things have inherent value. A $20 bill is not actually worth $20. It's worth the cost of the paper and ink used to print it, which is a few cents. The numbers in your bank account are just that. Numbers. Electrons arranged in patterns on a computer server somewhere. We treat money as if it's a thing, as concrete and real as a chair or an apple. But money is not a thing. Money is an agreement, a collective hallucination, a shared fiction that works because everyone agrees to pretend it's real. Think about it this way. If you were stranded alone on a deserted island with a briefcase containing $10 million in cash, you'd be a millionaire with nothing to eat, nothing to drink, and no way to improve your situation. The money would be worthless because there's no one to trade with, nothing to buy, no system of exchange to plug into. The paper might be useful for starting a fire, but that's about it. Money only has value because of what it can be exchanged for. It's not the bills that matter, it's what those bills can buy. It's not the numbers in your account that matter, it's what those numbers represent in terms of goods, services, experiences, and opportunities. This is the difference between nominal value and real value. Nominal value is the number on the price tag, the figure on your paycheck, the amount listed in your bank statement. It's the face value, the explicit quantity of currency units we're talking about. Real value is what that money can purchase. It's the purchasing power, the tangible goods and services you can exchange that money for. It's what economists call real, because it represents something real in your life. The food you can eat, the housing you can afford, the experiences you can have. Here's a simple example. Imagine you have $100 today. You can buy, let's say, 10 meals at a restaurant with that money. Now imagine you keep that $100 in a drawer for a year. Next year you take it out. You still have $100. The nominal value hasn't changed. But now, because of inflation, those same meals cost $12 each. Your $100 can now only buy about 8 meals. The number on the bills is the same. The nominal value is unchanged. But the real value, what matters, what affects your actual life, has decreased by 20%. This distinction seems obvious when it's explained like this. But here's the strange thing. We don't think this way naturally. Our brains are wired to focus on nominal values. We think in terms of the numbers we see, not the abstract concept of purchasing power. And this is where the illusion begins. To understand why Kareem is doomed, we must leave the present. We must go back to a time of jazz, flappers, and a man who saw the matrix before anyone else. Irving Fisher wasn't just an economist, he was a detective, and the crime scene was the human mind. Act number 1. The economist who saw through the veil historical sequence. New Haven, Connecticut, 1927, a summer evening at Yale University. An economist named Irving Fisher stands before an audience at the Geneva School of International Studies. He's 59 years old, one of the most prominent economic thinkers of his time, a man whose work spans mathematics, statistics, and economic theory. He's invented economic indices, developed theories of interest rates and capital, and written extensively on monetary policy. But tonight, Fisher is talking about something different, something that seems, on its surface, almost trivial. He's talking about a mistake, not a mathematical mistake, not a theoretical error, but a psychological mistake. A mistake that he believes lies at the heart of economic fluctuations, business cycles, and financial crises. A mistake that, he argues, almost everyone makes almost all the time. He calls it the money illusion. Fisher's lectures that summer would eventually become a book, published in 1928 under the simple title, The Money Illusion. In it, he defines the concept with characteristic precision. The money illusion is the failure to perceive that the dollar, or any other unit of money, expands or shrinks in value. Read that again. The failure to perceive that money expands or shrinks in value. Fisher understood something that most people, even educated, intelligent people, consistently missed. The value of money is not constant. A dollar today is not necessarily equal to a dollar tomorrow, not in any meaningful sense. Not in terms of what it can do for you, what it can buy, what it represents in real terms. Fisher observed that people think of money as if it were a fixed measuring stick. They think of a dollar the way they think of an inch or a pound, as a stable unit of measurement that always means the same thing and in all contexts. This seems reasonable. After all, we use money to measure the value of other things. We say a car costs $30,000, a house costs $300,000, a coffee costs $3. The dollar is the measuring stick, the unit we use to quantify value. So, it makes intuitive sense to think of the dollar itself as stable. But here's the problem. The measuring stick keeps changing length. Fisher used a powerful analogy to illustrate this. Imagine, he said, that you're trying to measure the dimensions of a room, but your measuring tape keeps expanding and contracting. Sometimes an inch on your tape represents an actual inch. Sometimes it represents half an inch, sometimes 2 inches. If you tried to build something using measurements taken with this unreliable tape, you'd end up with a disaster. That's exactly what happens with money. The unit keeps changing. A dollar can buy depending on inflation or deflation, but we keep treating it as if it's constant, as if a dollar is always a dollar, as if the numbers themselves mean something independent of what they can purchase. Fisher saw this illusion operating everywhere in economic life. He saw it in how workers thought about wages. He saw it in how businesses thought about profits. He saw it in how people thought about savings and debts. He saw it in how entire nations thought about their currencies. And he saw that this illusion had consequences, real, measurable, sometimes catastrophic consequences. Fisher believed that the money illusion played a crucial role in business cycles. During periods of inflation, he argued, people's wages might rise in nominal terms, making them feel wealthier, even if their real purchasing power stayed the same or even declined. This feeling of increased wealth would lead to increased spending. Businesses, seeing increased demand, would invest and expand. The economy would boom. But the boom was built on an illusion. Real wealth hadn't increased, only nominal wages had. Eventually, people would realize this. The illusion would shatter. Spending would contract. Businesses would cut back. The boom would turn to bust. Similarly, during deflation, when prices fall and the real value of money increases, people might demand the same nominal wages, even though those wages now buy more. Businesses, seeing wage costs as rigid, would lay off workers rather than accept lower profits. Unemployment would rise not because wages were truly too high, but because people didn't realize that lowering pay along with falling prices could keep their standard of living the same. Fisher's insight was revolutionary. He was arguing that major economic disruptions, recessions, unemployment, financial crises could stem not from real changes in productivity or resources, but from a cognitive illusion, from a mistake in how people think. Of course, Fisher wasn't the only economist thinking about these issues. Around the same time, the British economist John Maynard Keynes was developing related ideas. Keynes used the term money illusion in his work as well, helping to popularize the concept. Keynes argued that workers might resist cuts to their nominal wages even when prices were falling, creating wage rigidity that could lead to unemployment. Both Fisher and Keynes were struggling with a fundamental puzzle. Why didn't markets always clear? Why did unemployment persist? Why didn't wage and prices adjust smoothly and quickly to maintain equilibrium? The answer they proposed was psychological. People didn't think rationally about money. They suffered from an illusion that prevented them from seeing the real economic situation clearly. Now, This was a controversial idea. It still is. Classical and neoclassical economics had long been built on the assumption of rational actors, people who make decisions based on real values, who see through the veil of money to the underlying realities of production, consumption, and trade. If Fisher and Keynes were right, if the money illusion was real and persistent, then this assumption was wrong. Economic behavior couldn't be understood purely through mathematical models of rational optimization. Psychology mattered. Perception mattered. The way information was framed and presented mattered. Money, that seemingly transparent medium of exchange, was a veil, and most people couldn't see through it. For decades after Fisher published his book, the money illusion remained an interesting but somewhat critical idea in economics. Some accepted it, others rejected it. The debate was mostly theoretical, argued with equations and economic models rather than direct evidence. But in the late 20th century, something changed. A new field emerged, one that would revolutionize economics and prove Fisher's insight in ways he never could have anticipated. That field was called behavioral economics, and the evidence it produced would prove, beyond any reasonable doubt, that the money illusion was not just a theoretical possibility. It was a documented, measurable, replicable feature of human psychology. The proof would come from 3 researchers at Princeton University, and the experiments they designed would become some of the most famous demonstrations in all behavioral economics. But to understand those experiments and what they revealed about the human mind, we first need to understand why the money illusion happens. We need to look inside the machinery of thought itself. Welcome to the engine room. This is where the mistake happens. You see, your brain doesn't have a money cortex. It doesn't have a calculator lobe. It has this: a lizard brain. It wants safety. It wants food. It wants status. And when you try to feed it inflation-adjusted real GDP, it chokes. It panics. And in that panic, the illusion takes hold. Act number 2. The architecture of illusion. Here's a question. Why do smart people make dumb financial decisions? And I'm not talking about risky investments or get-rich-quick schemes. I'm talking about fundamental miscalculations. Celebrating a raise that's actually a pay cut. Feeling good about a price that's high. Believing you're saving money when you're really spending more. The answer isn't that people are stupid. The answer is that the human brain, that 3-pound marvel of biological computation, wasn't designed to think about money. Our brains evolved over millions of years to solve problems that our ancestors faced: finding food, avoiding predators, navigating social relationships, identifying threats and opportunities in the immediate environment. Abstract concepts like inflation, compound interest, and purchasing power parity. Those are recent inventions, blips on the evolutionary timeline. We've only had complex currency systems for a few thousand years. Our brains have had millions of years to evolve mechanisms for survival, but barely any time to develop specialized circuits for economic reasoning. So, when we think about money, we use mental tools that evolved for other purposes. And those tools, as powerful as they are in their original contexts, systematically mislead us when applied to abstract economic concepts. Let's start with the most basic aspect of the money illusion: why we focus on nominal values in the first place. The answer has to do with something called cognitive ease. Nominal values are easy to process. They're concrete numbers. You can see them, write them down, compare them directly. If someone offers you a salary of $50,000 and then offers you $55,000, you can immediately see that the second number is larger. This requires minimal cognitive effort. It's automatic, fast, effortless. Real values are hard to process. To calculate real value, you need to consider inflation, research price levels, make comparisons across time, perform mental arithmetic. This requires significant cognitive effort. It's slow, deliberate, exhausting. Our brains have a fundamental preference for cognitive ease. When we can solve a problem using fast, automatic thinking, we do. When a harder, more complex calculation is required, we often skip it unless we have a strong motivation to engage in that extra work. This is why nominal values dominate our thinking. Not because we're irrational, but because our brains are efficient. We use the shortcut that requires less effort. Psychologists call these mental shortcuts heuristics. Heuristics are rules of thumb that usually work well. Most of the time, in most situations, they give us good enough answers quickly. The problem is that they can systematically fail in contexts, leading to predictable errors. The reliance on nominal values is a heuristic, and it usually works fine. In a world with zero inflation, nominal and real values are the same. In a world with low, stable inflation that you barely notice in day-to-day life, the difference between nominal and real values feels minor. But in periods of high inflation or deflation, this heuristic breaks down. The easy answer, focus on the nominal number, becomes the wrong answer. But cognitive ease is only part of the story. There's something else going on, something deeper and more interesting. It has to do with how we frame value itself. Think about it this way. When you hear that your salary is going up by 5%, your brain automatically encodes this as a gain. You're getting more. More money means better, richer, further ahead. This happens instantly, before you've had time to think about inflation or purchasing power. Now imagine the opposite scenario. You hear that your salary is being cut by 2%. Your brain encodes this as a loss. You're getting less. Less money means worse, poorer, falling behind. Here's the crucial part. Our brains treat gains and losses asymmetrically. Losses feel roughly twice as bad as equivalent gains feel good. This is called loss aversion, and it's one of the most robust findings in all of psychology. When you get a nominal raise, even if inflation means your real purchasing power hasn't changed, you feel the psychological pleasure of a gain. When you get a nominal pay cut, even if deflation means your real purchasing power hasn't changed, you feel the psychological pain of a loss. The nominal frame determines whether something feels like a gain or loss. And that feeling is powerful. It shapes our satisfaction, our decisions, our entire sense of whether we're getting ahead or falling behind. There's a famous study that illustrates this perfectly. Researchers presented people with two scenarios. Scenario A, you live in a time with no inflation. Your salary stays the same this year, 0% change. Scenario B, you live in a time with 4% inflation. Your salary increases by 2%. Which scenario would make you happier? Economically, scenario A is better. Your real purchasing power stays constant. In scenario B, your real purchasing power decreases by 2%. You're actually worse off. But most people say they'd be happier in scenario B. Why? Because a 2% raise feels like a gain, even though it's not. Zero change feels neutral, even though it's better. This is the money illusion in action. The nominal frame, whether the number is going up, down, or staying the same, matters more to our emotional response than the real economic outcome. Now you might be thinking, okay, but once someone explains this to me, I'll adjust. I'll learn to think in real terms. I'll be immune to the illusion. And you'd be wrong. One of the most striking findings from research on the money illusion is that knowing about it doesn't make it go away. Even when people are explicitly told about inflation and asked to calculate real values, they still show evidence of the illusion. Even when they can correctly perform the arithmetic, their intuitions and emotional responses remain anchored to nominal values. Why? Because the illusion isn't about a lack of knowledge. It's about what's salient, what captures your attention, what dominates your thinking. Nominal values are salient. They're the numbers you see on your paycheck, on price tags, in your bank account. They're concrete, visible, immediate. Real values are abstract. They're calculations, concepts, hypotheticals. Even when you know they're more important, they don't have the same psychological weight. Imagine you're shopping for a laptop. You see one priced at $999. Your brain automatically processes this as less than $1,000. This happens instantly. To think about whether this is a good price, you'd need to research comparable laptops, consider quality differences, adjust for any changes in the market, maybe account for how laptop prices have been trending. That's a lot of work. Most people don't do it. They make judgments based on the nominal price and how it feels. Imagine you're retired and living off savings. You check your account balance and see it's grown by 3% this year. You feel good, your wealth is increasing. But if inflation was 5%, your real wealth decreased. The good feeling comes from the nominal increase. The reality is obscured. This is why the money illusion is so pernicious. It's not a simple mistake that education can fix. It's built into the architecture of how our minds process information. Nominal values are processed automatically, quickly, effortlessly, and emotionally. Real values require deliberate calculation, effort, and abstract reasoning. In the competition for what drives our decisions and shapes our feelings, nominal values win almost every time. There's another psychological mechanism at work here, one that deserves special attention because it helps explain why the money illusion persists, even when we should know better. It's called mental accounting. Mental accounting refers to the way people categorize, evaluate, and track financial outcomes. We don't treat all money the same way. We create different mental accounts for different types of money, and we apply different rules to each account. For example, you might have a mental account called salary, another called bonus, another called found money or windfall. Even though money is fungible, a dollar is a dollar regardless of where it came from, we treat these accounts differently. Money in the salary account feels serious, important, not to be wasted. Money in the bonus account feels more flexible, discretionary. Money in the windfall account feels almost free, like it doesn't count against your budget. Mental accounting affects how we think about money in time as well. We tend to create mental accounts for different time periods. Your money today is in a different account than money next year, or money in retirement. Here's where this connects to the money illusion. Mental accounting makes us focus on nominal changes within each account, rather than real purchasing power across time. When you get a raise, the number in your salary mental account goes up. This feels like a clear gain within that account. The fact that all your accounts might be losing real value due to inflation is harder to perceive because it requires comparing across time and adjusting for changes in the value of the currency itself. Your mental accounting system is tracking nominal values in each account. It's not automatically adjusting all accounts for inflation. That would be computationally expensive and cognitively demanding. So you get this strange situation where all your mental accounts show nominal increases. Your salary went up, your savings grew, your investments appreciated, but your real total wealth might have stayed the same or even declined. The mental accounting system gives you a false sense of progress because it's tracking the wrong metric. This connects to another important concept, the idea of separate evaluation versus joint evaluation. When you evaluate something in isolation, you focus on whatever features are most salient and easy to judge. When you evaluate multiple things together, you can make direct comparisons, which often reveals information that wasn't apparent in isolation. With the money illusion, we usually evaluate nominal values in isolation. You hear about your raise, and you evaluate it based on the nominal number without immediately comparing it to inflation. The nominal value is right in front of you. The inflation rate is somewhere else, possibly unknown, requiring effort to find and incorporate. If you evaluated the raise jointly with inflation, if your employer said, "We're giving you a 7% raise, and by the way, inflation is 8.5%, so you're actually taking a 1.5% real pay cut," the money illusion would be much harder to maintain. The real value would be salient. The comparison would be explicit. But that's not how information is presented. Raises are presented in isolation, as nominal figures. Inflation is reported separately, in different contexts, often in abstract terms like the consumer price index rose by X%. Making the connection requires cognitive work, and most of the time, we don't do that work. All these psychological factors, cognitive ease, loss aversion, salience, mental accounting, separate evaluation, work together to create and maintain the money illusion. Understanding these mechanisms helps us see why the illusion is so powerful and so persistent. It's not a simple error that can be fixed with a calculator. It's a confluence of deep features of human cognition, all pointing in the same direction, toward nominal values and away from real values. This is why Irving Fisher's insight was so profound. He recognized that an economic phenomenon, the failure of prices and wages to adjust smoothly, had a psychological explanation. And that psychological explanation wasn't that people were stupid or irrational. It was that people were human, using mental tools that worked well in most contexts, but broke down in the specific domain of monetary calculation. The money illusion is a window into how our minds work. And the view through that window is both humbling and illuminating. But here's what makes this more than just an interesting quirk of psychology. The money illusion has real consequences. It affects markets, policies, and individual financial well-being in profound ways. To see just how profound, we need to look at the evidence. We need to examine the experiments that proved definitively that the money illusion exists, that it's measurable, and that it influences behavior in systematic and predictable ways. Act number 3, the experiments that proved it. Princeton University, 1997. 3 researchers, Eldar Shafir, Peter Diamond, and Amos Tversky, publish a paper in the Quarterly Journal of Economics. The paper is simply titled Money Illusion. What they present in this paper is not a new theory. The concept of money illusion had been around for 70 years by this point, ever since Irving Fisher's book. What Shafir, Diamond, and Tversky present is proof. Direct, experimental, rigorous proof that the money illusion is real, that it affects human decision-making, and that it persists across a wide range of contexts. The paper would become one of the most cited works in behavioral economics, referenced in over 1,000 subsequent research papers. Its influence extends far beyond academia, shaping how we think about wage setting, price stability, monetary policy, and consumer behavior. Let me take you through some of their key experiments. Each one reveals something important about how the money illusion operates in our minds. Experiment 1, the happiness question. The first experiment is deceptively simple. The researchers presented people with scenarios about 2 individuals living in different economic conditions. Then they asked, who is happier? Who is more likely to leave their job? Here's one scenario. Anne lives in a time of 0% inflation. She gets a 2% raise. Ben lives in a time of 4% inflation. He gets a 5% raise. Now pause for a moment and think. Who is better off economically? The answer is Anne. With 0 inflation, her 2% raise is a 2% increase in real purchasing power. Ben's 5% raise with 4% inflation is only a 1% increase in real purchasing power. Anne's real gain is twice as large. But when Shafir, Diamond, and Tversky asked people who was happier, most said Ben. They also said Ben was less likely to leave his job. Why? Because Ben got a bigger nominal raise. 5% feels like more than 2%, even though the real economic benefit is smaller. The researchers tried several variations of this. They asked about situations where the real outcomes were identical, but the nominal frames were different. For example, Chris lives in a time of 0% inflation. His salary stays the same. Dave lives in a time of 4% inflation. He gets a 4% raise. Economically, Chris and Dave are in the same situation. Both maintain their real purchasing power. But people said Dave would be happier and less likely to quit. Again, because the nominal increase, even though it merely matches inflation, feels like a gain. Now here's what makes these findings really striking. The researchers also asked people explicitly about economic well-being, not just happiness. They asked, who is doing better financially? Even then, many people said the person with the larger nominal raise was doing better, even though simple arithmetic shows this is false. This wasn't a matter of people confusing emotional well-being with economic well-being. They were making errors in judging economic well-being itself. The nominal frame was so powerful that it overrode basic mathematical reality. Experiment 2. The real estate transaction. The second set of experiments involved scenarios about buying and selling houses. These experiments are particularly revealing because they show how the money illusion affects our judgments of fairness and economic success. Here's one scenario. Eleanor bought a house for $200,000. After 1 year of 0 inflation, she sells it for $210,000. Felicia bought a house for $200,000. After 1 year of 25% inflation, she sells it for $246,000. The researchers asked, who made the better investment? Economically, Eleanor made a much better investment. She made a $10,000 profit in real terms, a 5% real return. Felicia made a $46,000 profit in nominal terms, but with 25% inflation, her profit in real terms is actually a loss. The house's real value decreased. But most people said Felicia made the better investment. She sold for more money. The nominal gain was larger. That's what registers. The researchers also asked about the reverse situation, selling for a loss. George sells a house for a 2% nominal loss in a time of negative 2% inflation, deflation. Helen sells a house for a 2% nominal gain in a time of 4% inflation. Both George and Helen maintained the same real value, but people judged George's transaction as a failure and Helen's as a success. The nominal frame, loss versus gain, dominated their judgment, even though the real outcomes were identical. What's particularly interesting is that these experiments also revealed something about how we judge fairness. People thought it was more reasonable for sellers to be satisfied with their outcomes when they made nominal gains, even if those gains were illusory. They thought nominal losses were more upsetting, even when real value was preserved. The money illusion doesn't just affect our calculations. It affects our emotions, our sense of fairness, our satisfaction with outcomes. We feel good about nominal gains and bad about nominal losses, regardless of what's actually happening to our real wealth. Experiment 3. The frame matters. One of the most important findings from the Shafir, Diamond, and Tversky experiments was this. The way information is framed dramatically affects whether people exhibit the money illusion. In some versions of their experiments, the researchers described scenarios in explicitly economic terms, emphasizing real purchasing power. In others, they framed things in terms of personal satisfaction and subjective feelings. When the framing was explicitly economic, the money illusion was reduced but not eliminated. When the framing was about feelings and satisfaction, the illusion was much stronger. This tells us something important. Context matters. The money illusion is not an all-or-nothing phenomenon. It's stronger in some situations and weaker in others. But here's what makes it so difficult to overcome. Even in the conditions where the illusion was weakest, it was still present. Even when people were explicitly asked to think in economic terms, many still gave answers based on nominal rather than real values. The researchers also tested whether knowing about inflation reduced the money illusion. In one experiment, they told participants the exact inflation rate and made it very clear what the real purchasing power was in each scenario. Even then, the money illusion persisted. People still made judgments based on nominal values, even when the real values were right in front of them. This is perhaps the most striking finding of all. The money illusion is robust even in the face of complete information. It's not primarily about ignorance or lack of access to data. It's about what naturally captures our attention and shapes our intuitions. Act number 4. The illusion in the wild, real-world applications. So far, we've been talking about the money illusion in experiments, hypothetical scenarios, survey questions, controlled conditions. But what happens in the real world? How does the money illusion affect actual decisions with actual consequences? Let me tell you about Kareem's year. Remember Kareem? We met him at the beginning of this documentary, accepting his 7% raise while inflation ran at 8.5%. Let's follow him through the next 12 months and see how the money illusion shapes his financial life in ways he never fully realizes. It's November. Kareem is feeling good about his raise. He's been eyeing a new apartment, something a bit nicer than his current place. His current rent is $1,500 a month. The new place is $1,700. That's an extra $200 a month, or $2,400 a year. Before his raise, this would have felt like a stretch, but now he's earning an extra $3,500 a year. He can easily afford the extra rent and still have money left over. It feels like a wise upgrade, well within his means. He signs the lease. He moves in December. Here's what Kareem doesn't fully process. His raise was $3,500 in nominal terms, but only about negative $750 in real terms. A loss once inflation is factored in. The new apartment costs $2,400 more per year. In real terms, accounting for inflation, the additional cost is closer to $2,200. He hasn't calculated this. He's thinking in nominal terms. Extra income, $3,500. Extra cost, $2,400. Seems like it works. But in real terms, his purchasing power went down and his housing costs went up. The combination means he's stretching his budget more than he realizes. By February, Kareem notices something odd. Even though he's earning more money, his savings account doesn't seem to be growing as fast as he expected. In fact, he seems to have less discretionary spending money than before. He chalks it up to the moving expenses, the new apartment requiring some furniture and supplies. He doesn't recognize the underlying problem. The combination of unrecognized real income loss and increased expenses is squeezing his budget. In March, Kareem gets his tax refund, $800. It's not huge, but it's a nice windfall. He's been wanting to upgrade his phone, and this feels like found money, the perfect opportunity. He buys the phone for $750. It feels essentially free. He's just using the refund, money he wasn't counting on. Here's the mental accounting error. Kareem treats the refund as extra money, separate from his regular budget. But money is fungible. The refund is money he overpaid in taxes throughout the year, money that was already his. By spending it on a discretionary purchase rather than building savings or padding his budget, he's making his financial situation tighter. Moreover, the phone's real cost in terms of purchasing power is higher than the nominal $750 due to ongoing inflation. But because the purchase is framed as using refund money, the pain of spending is reduced. The nominal frame, refund equals free money, dominates his thinking. By May, Kareem is planning a summer vacation. He finds a good deal on flights and hotels, $1,800 total. He puts it on his credit card, planning to pay it off over 3 months. $600 a month feels manageable with his increased salary. What he doesn't fully factor in: interest on the credit card balance, the opportunity cost of that money, and the fact that his real income didn't actually increase. He's basing his vacation budget on his nominal raise, not his actual financial capacity. Come July, Kareem is feeling pinched. His credit card balance is higher than expected. His everyday expenses, groceries, gas, utilities, seem to cost more than they used to. His paychecks, even with the raise, don't stretch as far as he thought they would. He's not sure what's happening. He got a raise. He's earning more money. So why does he feel like he has less? This is the money illusion in the wild. Kareem made a series of decisions: accept a raise, upgrade his apartment, buy a new phone, take a vacation, that all seemed reasonable based on nominal values. But those decisions were based on a misperception of his real financial situation. His nominal income went up 7%, so he felt 7% richer. He made decisions accordingly, but his real income went down. He couldn't afford what he thought he could afford. The numbers lied to him, and he believed them. By October, Kareem has adjusted. He's cut back on discretionary spending, skipped some activities, made cheaper choices. His finances have stabilized, but at a lower real standard of living than he had before his raise. And the strange thing is, he never quite figures out what went wrong. He knows his raise didn't help as much as he expected, but he attributes it to various specific expenses and bad luck. He doesn't recognize the underlying pattern, the systematic error in thinking in nominal rather than real terms. Kareem's story is not unique. It's happening to millions of people right now, especially in times of high inflation. The money illusion shapes decisions about housing, consumption, savings, and debt in ways that are individually small, but collectively enormous. Pricing, the retailer's secret. The money illusion doesn't just affect wages, it affects how we perceive prices, and retailers have learned to exploit this. Walk into any store and look at the prices. You'll see $9.99, not $10, $19.99, not $20, $49.99, not $50. This is called charm pricing, and it works because of how we process nominal values. Psychologically, $9.99 feels significantly cheaper than $10, even though the difference is 1 cent. Why? Because we focus on the leftmost digit, 9 versus 10, single digit versus double digit, under 10 versus over 10. This is a form of the money illusion. We're responding to the nominal representation, the specific numbers and how they're framed, rather than the actual real value, which is essentially the same. But there are deeper applications of the money illusion in pricing. During inflationary periods, retailers face a choice: raise prices to maintain real profit margins, or keep prices stable and accept declining real profits. Here's where the money illusion creates an opportunity. Retailers can raise nominal prices, and if those prices still feel reasonable in nominal terms, many customers won't fully register the real increase. For example, say a coffee costs $3. Inflation is 5%. The retailer raises the price to $3.15. Customers might not even notice. $3.15 still feels like around $3 nominally. But the real cost, what that coffee represents in terms of your purchasing power, has increased by 5%. Now, if the retailer had tried to raise prices by 5% in a zero inflation environment, customers might have balked. But during inflation, the nominal increase feels justified, normal, expected. Customers' wages are going up nominally too, so nominal price increases seem fair. This is why businesses often love moderate inflation. It allows them to adjust real prices upward without triggering customer resistance, because the nominal increases blend into the general inflationary environment. On the flip side, the money illusion is why deflation, when prices fall, can be bad for the economy. You might think falling prices would be great for consumers, and in real terms, they are. Deflation increases the purchasing power of money. But in nominal terms, deflation means prices are falling, wages are falling, revenues are falling. All the numbers are going down, and psychologically going down feels bad. It feels like contraction, decline, crisis, even when real values might be stable. Businesses in a deflationary environment face a particular problem. They might need to cut nominal wages to maintain real profitability. But nominal wage cuts are extremely unpopular. Workers see them as unfair, insulting, a sign of failure. Even if prices are falling and the workers' real purchasing power could stay the same, the nominal cut feels like a loss. This is why economists generally prefer a small amount of inflation to deflation. Not because inflation is good for real purchasing power, it's not. But because the money illusion makes inflation psychologically easier to manage than deflation. Nominal increases feel like progress, even when they barely keep pace with rising prices. The money illusion shapes the entire landscape of pricing, from the penny's difference in charm pricing to the large-scale dynamics of inflation and deflation across the economy. Act number 5. The family of illusions, anchoring. The first number wins. Imagine you're shopping for a used car. The seller shows you a car and says, "I'm asking $25,000 for this." That number, 25,000, just became an anchor in your mind. It's the reference point around which you'll evaluate the car's value. Now, maybe the car is only worth 20,000. Maybe you negotiate and get the seller down to 22,000. You feel like you won. You got a discount. But you still might have overpaid by $2,000 because your judgment was anchored to the initial asking price. This is anchoring bias, the tendency to rely too heavily on the first piece of information we encounter when making decisions. Anchoring is everywhere in economic life. Initial asking prices anchor negotiations. List prices anchor sale prices. Historical highs anchor expectations for stocks and real estate. Starting salaries anchor lifetime earnings. Here's how anchoring connects to the money illusion. Nominal values often serve as anchors. When you hear your current nominal salary, that number becomes an anchor for evaluating raises. A 10% nominal increase feels significant because it's 10% more than the anchor. But the anchor itself might be based on an earlier nominal value that's already been eroded by inflation. Your judgment of whether you're being paid fairly is anchored to nominal past values, not real purchasing power. This makes it easier for real wages to stagnate or decline while nominal wages increase, if the nominal increases feel substantial relative to the anchor. Retailers use anchoring constantly. They show you a high original price, often inflated or fictional, then show you a lower sale price. Your judgment is anchored to the original price, making the sale price feel like a bargain, even if it's still overpriced in real terms. The combination of anchoring and the money illusion creates a particularly powerful distortion. You're anchored to nominal values, and then you evaluate changes in terms of nominal differences from those anchors, never adjusting for the changing real value of money itself. Framing. The same thing, seen differently. Here are two ways to describe the same medical treatment. Version A. This treatment has a 90% survival rate. Version B. This treatment has a 10% mortality rate. These statements are mathematically identical, but they don't feel identical. Version A sounds more appealing. 90% survival feels positive, hopeful. 10% mortality feels negative, risky. This is the framing effect. Our choices are influenced by how information is presented, even when the underlying facts are the same. Framing is deeply connected to the money illusion. Remember the experiments we discussed earlier. People felt better about a 2% nominal raise with 4% inflation than a 0% raise with 0 inflation, even though the second scenario is better in real terms. That's a framing effect. The nominal frame, whether the number is going up or staying flat, dominated people's judgments more than the real economic outcome. Businesses use framing constantly to exploit the money illusion. They frame price increases as adjustments to reflect current market conditions or modest increases to maintain quality, making them sound reasonable rather than threatening. They frame nominal wage increases as rewards, even when those increases don't match inflation. Government policy is framed in nominal terms almost exclusively. Politicians talk about investing $10 billion in some program, a number that sounds large and impressive in nominal terms. They rarely discuss what that $10 billion represents in real terms, how much actual goods and services it will purchase, whether it's more or less than previous investments once inflation is factored in. The framing effect means that how we think about money is shaped by which numbers are made salient, nominal or real, and by the language used to describe changes. Same reality, different frame, different perception. Loss aversion. Losses loom larger than gains. Quick experiment. I offer you a bet. If a coin comes up heads, you win $100. If it comes up tails, you lose $100. Would you take this bet? Most people say no. Even though the expected value is 0, it's a fair bet. The potential loss feels worse than the potential gain feels good. Psychologically, losing $100 hurts about twice as much as winning $100 feels good. This is loss aversion. We feel losses more intensely than equivalent gains. Loss aversion is one of the most important concepts in behavioral economics, and it's intimately connected to the money illusion. Here's why. The nominal frame determines what counts as a gain or a loss. A nominal pay increase of any amount feels like a gain, even if real purchasing power decreased. A nominal pay cut of any amount feels like a loss, even if real purchasing power stayed constant or increased, in the case of deflation. Because losses loom larger than gains, people resist nominal cuts much more strongly than they welcome equivalent nominal increases. A 2% nominal pay cut feels devastating, like a failure, like being undervalued. But a 2% nominal pay increase feels modest, expected, barely worth celebrating. This asymmetry creates economic rigidity. During recessions with deflation, employers might need to cut nominal wages to maintain profitability, but workers strongly resist, seeing nominal cuts as unacceptable losses, even if falling prices mean their real purchasing power could stay stable. Similarly, people hold on to investments that have nominal losses, hoping to break even when the real value has fallen, and it would be rational to sell. The nominal loss feels too painful to realize. The money illusion, combined with loss aversion, creates a world where nominal stability is valued more than real stability. We'd rather see our nominal wages stay flat or increase slightly, even if real wages fall, than see our nominal wages cut, even if real wages are maintained. This preference for nominal stability over real stability has profound macroeconomic consequences, affecting unemployment, price stickiness, and the effectiveness of monetary policy. The endowment effect. Owning makes it worth more. Imagine I give you a coffee mug. It's a nice mug, nothing special, probably worth about $5. I then offer to buy it back from you. How much would you want for it? Now imagine a different scenario. I show you the same mug and ask if you'd like to buy it. How much would you pay? Logic says these should be the same number. The mug has some objective value, and that value shouldn't depend on whether you happen to own it or not. But in experiments, people demand about twice as much to sell a mug they own than they'd be willing to pay to acquire the same mug. Ownership changes perceived value. This is the endowment effect. We value things more when we own them. How does this connect to the money illusion? The endowment effect works with money itself. Nominal money in your account, money you already have, feels more valuable than the real purchasing power it represents. You might be reluctant to spend $100 on something, even though you'd be willing to accept that same thing if it were given to you for free. The nominal $100 in your account feels like yours, and giving it up feels like a loss. This is compounded by the money illusion, because you think of your money in nominal terms. You worked for those $100. You earned it. The number in your account represents your effort and time. What's harder to perceive is that the real value of those $100 is constantly changing. Inflation is slowly taking it away from you, even while you're holding on to it. But the nominal endowment, the number in your account, stays the same, creating the illusion that your wealth is stable. The endowment effect makes us reluctant to spend nominal wealth, even when spending it would increase real well-being. We hold on to money because we own it, because we're loss-averse about giving it up, even when the real purchasing power is declining. Conversely, when we do spend, we often focus on the nominal price, how much we're giving up from our endowment, rather than the real value we're receiving. This can lead to both overspending, when nominal prices feel low even though real costs are high, and underspending, when nominal prices feel high even though real value is good. The zero price effect. Free is different. Let me give you a choice. Option A, a Lindt chocolate truffle for 15 cents. Option B, a Hershey's Kiss for 1 cent. Most people choose the Lindt. It's higher quality, and even though it costs more, the price is low enough that the extra quality seems worth it. Now let me give you a different choice. Option A, a Lindt chocolate truffle for 14 cents. Option B, a Hershey's Kiss for free. Now most people choose the Hershey's Kiss. Even though the price difference is the same 14 cents, the word free changes everything. This is the zero price effect. We perceive free things as dramatically more valuable than things with even a tiny price. The zero price effect connects to the money illusion in a subtle but important way. It reveals that our perception of value isn't rational or consistent. It's highly context-dependent and easily manipulated by framing. When something is free, we don't do a careful cost-benefit analysis. We don't think about opportunity costs or compare value. We just think free. Free is good. Free means get it. This is why businesses offer free trials, free shipping, free gifts with purchase. The word free bypasses rational economic thinking and triggers an automatic positive response. But here's the connection to the money illusion. Free is a nominal frame, not a real value. Something free in nominal terms still has real costs: your time, your attention, your data, the opportunity cost of not choosing something else. Similarly, when something is described as only a small nominal price, 99 cents, $1, $5, we underestimate its real cost, especially if we're buying many small price items that add up. The zero price effect and the money illusion both reflect the same underlying tendency. We respond to nominal frames, free, cheap, expensive, more than to careful calculations of real value and real trade-offs. Mental accounting, different pockets, different rules. You've saved $500 for a vacation. You've also got a $500 tax refund coming. Then you unexpectedly need to spend $500 on car repairs. Which $500 do you use? the vacation savings or the tax refund? Logically, it doesn't matter. Money is fungible. $500 is $500. But psychologically, it matters a lot. Most people would use the tax refund rather than the vacation savings. Why? Because we practice mental accounting. We put money into different mental categories and treat those categories differently. The vacation savings are in the vacation fund mental account. That money has a specific purpose, an emotional attachment. It feels wrong to raid that account for something else. The tax refund is in the windfall mental account. It's unexpected money, found money. It feels more flexible, more appropriate to use for unexpected expenses. Mental accounting interacts with the money illusion in powerful ways. First, mental accounting is almost always done in nominal terms. Your mental categories are labeled with nominal dollar amounts. I have $2,000 in my emergency fund. I've saved $5,000 for a down payment. These are nominal figures, and you rarely adjust them for inflation. This means that your mental accounting system is constantly becoming less accurate in real terms. Your emergency fund nominally stays at $2,000, but its real purchasing power slowly erodes. You think you have the same buffer, but you have less. Second, mental accounting affects how you perceive gains and losses. A bonus or refund goes into a special account and feels like extra money that you can spend more freely. But that money has the same real value as your regular income. The mental category changes your behavior without changing the economic reality. Third, mental accounting makes you focus on individual accounts rather than your overall financial picture. You might feel good because your savings account balance increased nominally, without noticing that your credit card balance also increased, or that inflation reduced the real value of your total wealth. The combination of mental accounting and the money illusion creates a fragmented view of your finances, where nominal numbers in different mental categories feel meaningful even when they don't accurately represent your real economic situation. Act number 6. The exploitation economy, how the illusion is used against us. There's a restaurant in Manhattan that I want to tell you about. On the menu, there's a $48 hamburger. $48 for a hamburger. Nobody orders it. It's not meant to be ordered. It's meant to be seen. Because right below that $48 hamburger is a $28 steak. And suddenly, $28 for a steak feels reasonable. It feels like a good deal, even though it's objectively expensive. The hamburger serves as an anchor, making everything else on the menu feel more affordable by comparison. This is the money illusion weaponized. It's the deliberate exploitation of how we perceive nominal values. Modern capitalism has become extraordinarily sophisticated at exploiting cognitive biases. Businesses employ psychologists, behavioral economists, and marketing researchers to figure out how to make their products and prices feel more appealing. They use the money illusion and its related biases as tools to influence your decisions. This isn't necessarily evil. Businesses are trying to sell products and make profits, but it means that you, the consumer, are operating in an environment specifically designed to exploit the weaknesses in your economic reasoning. Let me show you how deep this goes. Psychological pricing, the 99-cent trick and beyond. We already talked about charm pricing, ending prices with 99 cents instead of rounding up. But there's more to psychological pricing than just the 99-cent trick. Prices are calibrated to feel right in nominal terms regardless of real value. $9.99 feels like less than $10, which feels like a casual, low-stakes purchase. $49.99 feels like under $50, which feels moderate. $9.99 feels like a significant but manageable expense. Retailers have data on what nominal price points maximize sales for different categories of products. They know that certain numbers feel right to consumers, and they set prices at those numbers. But here's what's insidious. These feels right price points don't adjust quickly for inflation. Think about it. For decades, a soda at a convenience store cost 99 cents, then $1. Now maybe $1.25 in some places. But the transition is slow and sticky. Meanwhile, the cost to produce that soda has changed with inflation, sometimes faster than the retail price. But the retail price is anchored to nominal price points that feel right to consumers. What happens is that during low inflation, real prices might fall as nominal prices stay sticky. During high inflation, retailers hold prices at familiar nominal levels for as long as possible, absorbing reduced real margins until the pressure becomes too great and they suddenly jump to the next nominal price point. This creates discontinuous real price changes hidden by smooth nominal price points. You think prices are stable because the nominal numbers change slowly, but the real prices are fluctuating constantly. Retailers also use what's called price partitioning. They break a price into multiple components to make the nominal total feel smaller. For example, an airline might advertise a flight for $99, then add $50 in fees, $20 for checked baggage, $15 for seat selection. The total is $184, but the advertised price was $99. Under $100 feels cheap. Each component nominally feels small. $50 in fees, eh? Just $50. $20 for baggage, that's not much. $15 for a seat, whatever. But the total is substantial. Price partitioning exploits mental accounting. Each charge goes into a different mental account. Flight cost is $99. Fees are separate. Baggage is separate. You never fully consolidate them into a single real total cost in your mind. Another tactic is shrinkflation. Instead of raising nominal prices, manufacturers reduce the size of the product. A candy bar that was 100 grams becomes 85 grams. A box of cereal that was 500 grams becomes 430 grams. The nominal price stays the same. On the shelf, it looks like the price is stable, but the real price, the cost per unit of product, has increased significantly. Consumers notice this much less than they notice nominal price increases. The number on the price tag hasn't changed, so it doesn't trigger the psychological response that a price increase would. The money illusion. Focus on nominal values makes shrinkflation an effective strategy to increase real prices without alerting consumers. Subscription. Creep. The slow nominal rise. How much do you pay for Netflix, Amazon Prime, Spotify, your gym membership? Think back to when you first signed up for each service. How much was it then? Now think about how many times the price has increased since then. Subscription services are masters at exploiting the money illusion. Here's how. You sign up at an attractive initial nominal price. Let's say $9.99 a month for a streaming service. That price is anchored in your mind as the value of the service. A year later, you get an email. We're raising prices to reflect increased costs and continued investment in content. Your new price is $10.99. $1 more. $1 more a month. $12 a year. It's annoying, but it doesn't feel like a big enough change to cancel over. You keep the subscription. Another year passes. Another email. Your new price is $11.99. Another $1. Again, not quite enough to trigger cancellation. This continues. Over 5 years, the price has gone from $9.99 to $13.99. That's a 40% nominal increase. In real terms, depending on inflation, it might be an even larger increase in actual cost. But because the increases came in small nominal increments, each one feeling just barely tolerable, you never experienced the psychological shock of a sudden large price jump. You're now paying 40% more, and you might not even fully realize it because the increases were gradual and framed as modest. This is the boiling frog version of the money illusion. Nominal values creep up slowly, and each step feels small enough to accept, even as the cumulative real cost grows substantially. Subscription services also exploit mental accounting. Many people don't fully track their monthly subscription costs. Each one is in a separate mental account. Netflix is $11.99. Spotify is $9.99. Amazon Prime is $14.99, or $119 annually, mentally amortized. The gym is $39. Cloud storage is $5. News subscription is $15. Each nominally feels manageable, but the total is $95 a month, or over $1,100 a year. That's a significant real cost, but because it's split across mental accounts, it doesn't feel as large as a single $1,100 annual expense would. Wage stagnation, the corporate strategy. Here's an uncomfortable truth. Many corporations have figured out that they can reduce real labor costs while maintaining employee morale by managing nominal raises strategically. During periods of high inflation, companies can give employees regular nominal raises, 3%, 4%, 5%, that feel like rewards and recognition. Employees see their nominal pay going up year after year and feel they're making progress. But if inflation is running higher than the raises, say 6 or 7%, real wages are declining. The company's real labor costs are going down. Employees are getting poorer in real terms while feeling satisfied about their nominal gains. This is economically equivalent to cutting real wages, but psychologically it's the opposite. Real wage cuts generate resentment and turnover. Nominal raises that don't match inflation generate satisfaction and loyalty. Large corporations with sophisticated HR departments understand this dynamic. They benchmark their raises not to inflation, but to industry standards, which themselves are often below inflation during high inflation periods. This creates a collective real wage reduction across entire sectors, while individual employees feel they're being treated fairly because they're getting regular nominal increases. There's also the strategic use of bonuses versus base salary increases. Imagine you're a manager deciding how to compensate employees. Option A, give a 5% raise to base salary. Option B, give a 2% raise to base salary and a 3% one-time bonus. In the first year, these are economically equivalent. But in subsequent years, the base salary increases compounds. It's permanent. The bonus doesn't. Yet psychologically, many employees prefer getting a bonus. It feels like extra, like a reward, like free money, beyond the expected salary increase. By shifting compensation toward bonuses and away from base salary increases, companies can reduce long-term real labor costs while maintaining employee satisfaction through nominal gains that feel good but don't compound. The money illusion allows companies to manage labor costs in ways that would be impossible if employees thought primarily in real terms. Marketing frames. Exploiting perception. Consider how discounts are framed. Was $50, now $30. This frames the purchase as saving $20. The original price, which may be inflated or fictional, serves as an anchor. The nominal discount feels like a gain. But the real question is $30 a good price for this item in absolute terms? The nominal discount is irrelevant to the real value, but it's the nominal frame that drives purchase decisions. Or consider how larger purchases are framed. A car costs $35,000. That's a big nominal number, potentially scary. So it's reframed. Just $309 a month for 120 months. $309 a month feels manageable. It's broken into smaller nominal units. The total cost is $35,000 plus interest, potentially $40,000 or more, is hidden by the monthly nominal frame. Credit cards exploit this same principle. You don't feel the total real cost. You feel the minimum monthly payment, a small nominal amount that feels affordable even as the real debt grows. Marketing also exploits the zero price effect relentlessly. Buy one, get one free. You're not getting anything free. The price of the first item is set to cover both. But free triggers an automatic positive response. Free shipping. The shipping cost is built into the product price, but making the shipping nominally zero increases sales dramatically. Free trial. You'll be auto-enrolled in a paid subscription after the trial, but free gets you to sign up without careful evaluation. The word free is a nominal frame that bypasses rational cost-benefit analysis and triggers acquisition behavior. Perhaps most insidiously, marketing can use inflation itself as a manipulation tool. Prices going up soon. Buy now before the price increase. These messages create urgency using the nominal frame of rising prices, even if the real value isn't changing, even if the upcoming price increase is strategic rather than necessary. During inflationary periods, this tactic is especially effective. Consumers expect prices to rise, so threats of imminent increases feel credible and motivate immediate purchase, even if waiting might be better for their overall financial situation. Policy and politics, the nominal illusion in governance. The money illusion isn't just exploited by businesses. It's central to how governments communicate about economic policy. Politicians almost always discuss budgets, spending, and programs in nominal terms. We're investing $10 billion in infrastructure. That sounds impressive, but is $10 billion a lot or a little? Compared to what? How does it compare to previous infrastructure spending in real terms? How much will it build given current costs? These questions rarely get asked. The nominal number, 10 billion, is what makes headlines and shapes public perception. Similarly, politicians love to announce nominal increases in funding. Education spending is up 5%. That sounds like progress. But if inflation is 6%, real education spending went down. Schools can buy less with their increased nominal funding than they could last year. Social security and retirement benefits often adjust nominally, but not always in line with real costs. A 3% cost of living adjustment sounds reasonable. But if healthcare costs, a major expense for retirees, increased by 7%, real living standards declined. The money illusion allows politicians to claim credit for nominal increases while delivering real cuts. And because most voters think in nominal terms, this strategy works. Tax policy is also communicated in nominal terms. $1,000 tax cut for middle-class families. $1,000 sounds like a meaningful amount. But for a family earning $60,000, it's less than 2% of income. And if inflation is 3%, their real purchasing power still declined overall. Politicians also exploit nominal frames to make the opposition look bad. They're proposing $1 trillion in new spending. $1 trillion sounds like a terrifying amount, recklessly high. But over 10 years, for a $20 trillion a year economy, it's a small percentage. The nominal frame, trillion, scares people without providing real context. Minimum wage debates are almost entirely fought in nominal terms. $15 an hour, $7.25 an hour. These nominal numbers become political symbols. But the real question is, what does $15 an hour buy? What standard of living does it provide? How does it compare to minimum wages in the past after adjusting for inflation? A $15 minimum wage today might represent less real purchasing power than a $5 minimum wage did in 1980, depending on inflation and cost of living changes. But the nominal comparison, 15 versus 5, makes it sound like a huge increase. The money illusion shapes political discourse, policy debates, and public understanding of economic issues. Nominal frames dominate. Real values are obscured. And most people don't notice the gap between the nominal discussions and the real outcomes. We've seen how businesses, marketers, employers, and politicians exploit the money illusion to shape behavior, influence decisions, and achieve their goals. This might feel discouraging. It might feel like you're constantly being manipulated. But here's the thing. Understanding how the illusion works is the first step toward overcoming it. Knowing the tools that are being used against you is how you start to see through them. The money illusion is powerful, but it's not invincible. There are strategies, mental habits, and practical techniques you can use to think more clearly about money, make better decisions, and avoid the systematic errors that cost you real wealth and well-being. It's time to talk about solutions. Act number 7. Seeing through the veil: how to overcome the illusion. Here's the hard truth. You cannot eliminate the money illusion from your thinking. It's too deeply embedded in how your brain works. But you can learn to recognize it. You can develop habits that compensate for it. You can create systems that reduce its influence on your decisions. Think of it like an optical illusion. Once you understand how the illusion works, you can see both the illusion and the reality. You might still experience the illusion. Your brain might still process the nominal values first and most strongly, but you'll know to double-check, to calculate the real values, to adjust your intuitions. Let me give you a toolkit for seeing through the veil of money. Strategy 1. Always ask the inflation question. Every time you encounter a nominal financial figure, a salary, a price, a savings balance, an investment return, ask yourself, what's the real value here? How does this adjust for inflation? This should become automatic, a reflex. See a number, ask about inflation. Your salary increased by 4%? What was inflation? If inflation was 3%, your real raise was 1%. If inflation was 5%, you took a real pay cut. Your savings account grew by $2,000? What was inflation? If inflation was 3% and your total savings was $50,000, you lost $500 in real purchasing power, even though the nominal balance increased. An investment returned 7%. What was inflation? If inflation was 2%, your real return was 5%. If inflation was 8%, you lost money in real terms. Make this calculation explicit. Don't just think it vaguely, do the arithmetic. Write it down. Make real values as salient as nominal values. This is effortful, it's annoying. It goes against your brain's preference for cognitive ease, but it's necessary. Over time, it becomes easier. You develop an intuition for the difference between nominal and real. You start to automatically adjust for inflation without needing to consciously calculate every time. But in the beginning, and for major decisions, always do the explicit calculation. Always ask the inflation question. Strategy 2. Think in purchasing power, not dollars. Instead of thinking, I make $60,000 a year, think, I can afford a one-bedroom apartment in my city, a used car, groceries for one, occasional entertainment, and minimal savings. Instead of thinking, these costs $300, think, these costs about a week of food, or these costs 5 trips to the movies, or these costs 10 hours of work. By translating nominal dollars into real things, actual goods, services, experiences, hours of labor, you ground your thinking in real values. This is especially important for long-term financial planning. Don't think, I need $1 million for retirement. Think, I need enough to maintain my current standard of living for 30 years after I stop working. Then calculate. What does maintaining your current standard of living cost in real terms? How much will that cost in the future, adjusted for expected inflation? How much do you need to save in real terms? This shifts your focus from hitting a nominal target to securing a real outcome. The number of dollars matters less than what those dollars can do for you. Strategy 3. Use real rates for everything. Whenever you're evaluating a financial decision involving interest rates, returns, or growth over time, always use real rates, nominal rates, minus inflation. A savings account with a 2% interest rate and 3% inflation is losing you money. The real rate is negative 1%. A loan with a 5% interest rate and 4% inflation is really only costing you 1% in real terms. A stock investment with a 10% return and 2% inflation gave you an 8% real return. Real rates are what affect your wealth. Nominal rates can be misleading. This is especially important for debt. During high inflation, debt with a fixed nominal interest rate becomes cheaper in real terms. You borrowed dollars that were worth more, and you're paying back dollars that are worth less. Conversely, holding cash during high inflation is expensive in real terms. The nominal amount stays the same, but its real value decreases. Always think, what's the real cost? What's the real return? What's the real rate of growth or decline? Strategy 4. Inflation adjust your mental accounts. Remember mental accounting, the way you categorize money into different buckets. Savings, emergency fund, vacation money, retirement account, and so on. Make a habit of periodically inflation adjusting these mental accounts. At least once a year, sit down and ask, have my mental account targets kept pace with inflation? If you decided 5 years ago that you needed a $10,000 emergency fund, is $10,000 still adequate in today's terms? With inflation, you might now need $12,000 or $13,000 to have the same real buffer. If you set a goal of saving $50,000 for a house down payment, and that was 3 years ago, you might now need $55,000 or $60,000 to have the same purchasing power. Update your targets. Adjust for inflation. Don't let your goals silently erode in real terms while the nominal numbers stay constant. This is also true for budgeting. If you established a monthly budget 5 years ago, the nominal amounts are probably no longer appropriate. Costs have risen. Adjust your budget categories for inflation. Strategy 5. Beware the anchors. Recognize when you're being anchored to nominal values. In a salary negotiation, the employer's initial offer is an anchor. Don't just negotiate upward from that anchor. Research what the role should pay in absolute terms, adjusted for inflation and market rates. Come to the negotiation with your own anchor based on real value, not their nominal starting point. In shopping, ignore original prices and sale framing. Ask, is the current nominal price a good deal for the real value? Don't let manufactured anchors shape your judgment. In investment, don't anchor to past peak prices. A stock that was once $100 but is now $50 might still be overpriced. The real question is, what's it worth now based on fundamentals? The historical high is irrelevant. When you notice an anchor, a reference price, a comparison number, a starting point, consciously set it aside. Make your judgment based on real value, not nominal anchoring. Strategy 6. Challenge the frames. Whenever information is presented to you in nominal terms, reframe it in real terms. Prices are going up 3% becomes, real prices are going up 1% if my income is increasing by 4%. Or, real prices are going up 5% if my income is only increasing by 2%. You're getting a 5% raise becomes, I'm getting a 2% real increase if inflation is 3%. Or, I'm taking a 1% real pay cut if inflation is 6%. This house cost 20% more than it did 5 years ago becomes, this house cost 10% more in real terms if inflation was 10% over those 5 years. Or, this house costs 30% more in real terms if inflation was only 10% total. Always translate, always reframe, always adjust. Make it a game. Every time you hear a nominal figure in the news, in an advertisement, in a conversation, immediately translate it to real terms in your head. Practice until it becomes automatic. Strategy 7. Build inflation protection into your finances. Beyond just thinking differently, you can structure your finances to be more resilient to inflation and less vulnerable to money illusion errors. For income, negotiate for automatic cost of living adjustments tied to inflation indices. If your salary doesn't automatically adjust for inflation, you're guaranteed to lose real purchasing power over time unless you negotiate a new raise every single year. For savings, use investments that tend to keep pace with or exceed inflation. Stocks, real estate, inflation-protected securities. Holding large amounts of cash or low-interest bonds is a real loss during inflation, even if the nominal value stays stable or grows slightly. For debt, if you must borrow, consider that fixed-rate debt becomes cheaper in real terms if inflation rises. Adjustable-rate debt is riskier because rates can rise with inflation, but fixed-rate debt locks in a nominal payment that becomes less burdensome as inflation erodes the real value of money. For major purchases, compare the real cost over time, not just the nominal price. A cheaper nominal price today might be worse than a higher nominal price later if your real purchasing power is increasing. Conversely, during high inflation, accelerating purchases before real costs rise might make sense. Build these inflation considerations into your financial systems and structures so you're not relying entirely on conscious effort to overcome the money illusion. Strategy 8. Educate your intuitions. Your intuitive, automatic thinking is always going to focus on nominal values. That's just how your brain works. But you can train your intuitions over time to be more accurate. Start by keeping a personal inflation journal. Track prices of things you buy regularly. Note when they increase and by how much. Calculate the real price change. Over time, you'll develop a visceral sense of how inflation affects your actual purchasing power. Track your salary in real terms. Create a spreadsheet. Every year, adjust all your past salaries for inflation to today's dollars. See the real trajectory of your earnings, not just the nominal one. This makes real wage trends salient rather than hidden. When you make financial decisions, note them and predict their outcomes in both nominal and real terms. Then check back later. Did the nominal outcome match the real outcome? Where did your intuitions mislead you? Learn from the gaps. Over time, through repeated practice and feedback, you can train your intuitions to be less vulnerable to the money illusion. You won't eliminate the bias, but you'll reduce it. Strategy 9. Use real comparisons, not nominal comparisons. When you're evaluating whether you're doing well financially, don't compare yourself to past nominal values or other people's nominal values. Compare real purchasing power. Don't think I'm earning more than I did 5 years ago. Think, can I afford more than I could 5 years ago? Don't think, my friend makes 80,000 and I make 70,000, so they're better off. Think, my 70,000 in a low-cost city might provide better real living standards than their 80,000 in a high-cost city. Don't think, my house is worth twice what I paid for it. Think, how much real housing value, square footage, location, amenities can I afford now versus when I bought? Real comparisons cut through the nominal illusion and reveal actual changes in well-being. Strategy 10. Demand transparency. As a consumer, as an employee, as a citizen, demand that information be presented in real terms, not just nominal terms. Ask employers to provide not just salary figures, but real purchasing power comparisons. How does this salary compare to last year's in inflation-adjusted terms? Ask businesses to provide historical price information adjusted for inflation. What did this product cost 5 years ago in today's dollars? Ask politicians to discuss budgets and spending in real terms. How does this spending compare to historical levels after adjusting for inflation and population growth? The more people demand real value transparency, the more institutions will provide it. And the more real values are made salient in public discourse, the less power the money illusion has to distort decisions and manipulations. The limits of individual effort. I want to be honest with you. Even with all these strategies, you're still going to fall victim to the money illusion sometimes. It's too fundamental to how your mind works. You'll still feel happy about nominal raises that are real cuts. You'll still be influenced by nominal prices and anchors. You'll still use nominal values as your primary reference points. But here's what you can do. You can catch yourself. You can double check. You can make the extra effort to calculate real values for important decisions. You can't be perfectly rational, but you can be aware of your biases. And that awareness, combined with practical strategies to compensate for those biases, can significantly improve your financial decision-making. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is progress. The goal is to make fewer errors, to see through the illusion more often, to make decisions based on real values rather than nominal numbers. And collectively, if enough people start thinking this way, if enough consumers, employees, investors, and citizens demand real value transparency and make decisions based on real rather than nominal terms, the power of the money illusion in markets and policy will diminish. The illusion is strong, but it's not invincible. Understanding it is the first step. Acting on that understanding is the second. Living with the illusion. Let's return one final time to Kareem. It's been a year since his 7% raise. He struggled, adjusted, learned. He started paying more attention to inflation. He's begun to think more carefully about real purchasing power. He's not immune to the money illusion. Nobody is, but he's more aware. He's negotiating his salary again. This time he's prepared differently. He's researched inflation. He knows it's been high, though it's coming down. He's calculated what raise he needs just to maintain his real purchasing power. He knows what increase would represent actual real growth. He walks into the meeting not thinking, I want a 7% raise. He's thinking, I want to maintain my purchasing power and see a 3% real increase, which means I need an X% nominal raise depending on inflation. He asks different questions. He frames his request differently. He's still operating in a world of nominal numbers. He must. That's how salaries are discussed. But he's translating back and forth between nominal and real. He's seeing through the veil. He won't always get it right. The money illusion will still trip him up sometimes. But he's learned to double-check his intuitions, to ask the inflation question, to think in terms of real value. And that's the best we can do. The money illusion is part of being human. It's built into how our minds work. We can't eliminate it, but we can understand it. We can recognize it. We can compensate for it. The money illusion is everywhere. In every salary, every price, every investment, every political debate about economic policy.
It shapes markets, careers, and lives. But once you understand it, once you've learned to see through the veil, you can never quite see money the same way again. You'll look at a price tag and ask, what's this really worth? You'll hear about a raise and ask, how does this adjust for inflation? You'll see a politician touting a spending bill and ask, what does this mean in real terms? The illusion won't disappear, but you'll see it for what it is. And that clarity, that ability to see both the nominal and the real, is power. It's the power to make better decisions, the power to avoid manipulation, the power to understand what's happening in your economic life. The complete saga of the money illusion is, ultimately, a story about human perception and reality, about how we see the world and how the world is, about the gap between the two and what we can do about it. It's a story about numbers and meaning, symbols and substance, representation and reality. It's a story about how easy it is to be fooled by the numbers we use to measure value. And it's a story about how, with effort and understanding, we can learn to see through the numbers to the reality beneath. The money illusion is powerful, but understanding is more powerful. And now you understand. So where does this leave us? Are we helpless? Are we just monkeys with credit cards? No, because now you have the cheat code, you have the red pill, you know that the dollar is a shapeshifter, you know that the price tag is a liar. Kareem knows it too. Look at him. He's not richer in money, but he's richer in truth. And that is the only value that doesn't inflate away. I'm Think Glent. Keep thinking.